Now, again, unfortunately for all of you on the line, right, I said there's not a lot of capacity building grants out there, as you probably already know if you've done any research trying to say, who's going to give us a grant? Is it going to be, the Bill Gates Foundation, or is it going to be your local community foundation? There's a lot of people that often want to give directly to program. And that's where it's your job to make that connection with that potential funding source. You want to do all of your research before you even start to spend your time filling out that application. What that means really is do your research and find out, what does that funder support, right? Make sure that your mission aligns with the things that they are going to support. Make sure that you spend the time to build that relationship with the funder. I mentioned earlier on the importance of, how I feel the greatest opportunity for increasing your output is individual giving, right? Because oftentimes there's limited number of grants within a certain service area or within your geographic area. And people think that relationships only matter to individuals, when in truth, it actually exists with a foundation as well. The first thing after you go and you research what they fund and if you might be a potential fit, you have to reach out to those individuals. There are people behind the screen that are going to be reviewing all of that information. The worst thing that we see is when we have an application come in and they're asking for $100,000, and our typical grant during that cycle might be closer to $20,000. Well, clearly they haven't done their research to find out what's the size of grants that we typically give out. We don't know the organization that's applying, so it's a very easy slide to the right. They're going to be on the no pile, right? And our board, as they review those applications, are going to say, what's this group even thinking? That's an easy no. Let's not even really bother talking to them. Let's focus our attention on the 100 other applications that we have that are qualified and try to figure out who we're going to give out that information or give out those grants. Again, if we as people know the other people that are involved with the mission, it makes a partnership, right? Funders love to look at their grants as investments. And an investment in an organization often is an investment in the people. So again, that's how relationships have to be formed, and we have to be able to trust that you are going to be doing the work with the money that's given out. We spend a lot of time thinking in systems wide, right? We know that you're doing the day-to-day actual work. So we're thinking systems, you're working on the day-to-day. Make sure that you're connecting with your day-to-day with how the system plays together and how, most importantly, your work is going to make an impact in the long term for the community. Have specific understanding of again, what those measurable outcomes are going to be. And then really, it's about maintaining that relationship, even if you do not receive a grant. You call. Never think that if you get a no, that it's a no forever. Always make sure to make a phone call and talk to that person and say, was there anything that we could do differently in the future that might allow us to get a grant? Or they might say, would it be possible for us to apply in the future? And if that funder is going to be honest, they're going to say, well, you're just not a good fit. Now not to waste your time. But a lot of times, I call it when we have a new organization, our board wants to date for a little while before we walk you down the aisle and want to make that long-term commitment, right? We want to kind of see what you're about, see what you're doing. And so we expect or hope that you're going to come back and apply the following year and say, you know what, we took all of that feedback you gave us. These are the things that we said we were going to do. These are the things that we did. Now we're in a better position to be able to partner with you and move forward together. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen a lot. And so I'd encourage all of you, anytime you apply for a grant and you get a no, which you're going to hear that a lot. It doesn't mean that people don't like the mission. There's just limited dollars when they're competitively looking out. How, follow up with those individuals and ask them. Final point.
I think it's. Oh, go ahead,
go
Brian.
ahead.
I was going to say, I think the analogy there of that this is a courtship. There's a real need to, recognize that there's a dating process of going to the dance, going to the prom, going to the picnics, before you get married. And
Absolutely.
In terms of no one's expecting to start at the altar in the first attempt.
Exactly. And that's, that's again, if you already have an existing relationship with a funder and you're trying to seek out, how can you incorporate capacity building into a future request? The first thing, ask them, right? Say, hey, we are at a point now where we have a new strategic plan where we're ready to expand this program, and we would like to be able to be considered for additional funds. Do you have any additional grant cycles is the first question, right? Because you want to make sure you're maximizing every possible grant that there is. But the second thing, right, is you want to be able to take that $10,000 grant and get it up to $15,000 or maybe even, $20,000 if possible. It starts with that relationship and you ask that question. And the way that you're really most likely going to be doing it, because the answer is going to be, well, we don't have a grant cycle for capacity building. And so, instead of kind of getting frustrated and thinking, well, how are we going to get somebody to pay for technology or pay for that training or pay for that additional staff person, it becomes that opportunity to incorporate that expansion into your regular program request, right? So it's a matter of, you're serving 50 scholars this year. You want to get to 100. So in order to be able to get to 75 in the next year, that's going to require a new CRM and 2 new computers for your additional interns that you're going to pay. Well, guess what? Now your program budget increases slowly and incrementally, and it's program. It's not capacity building. It's not a separate thing like it's a whole separate bucket. It's really, truly just expansion of your existing programs. And I think that's if we start to think about capacity building in the terms of it's an expansion of existing successful programs that have the opportunity to impact more lives, that's going to resonate a lot more than saying, we need to hire a new staff person to be able to do this. Well, that's great, but many funders don't want to be responsible for solely, being the one that's paying for a new staff person. However, if you're going to be able to serve 10 additional students next year with just an incremental increase from the foundation, now let's talk a little bit more, right? Tell me about how and why we should give you an increase in grant. Well, we're going to expand because we're going to do this, and we need technology, and you just make sure that you incorporate that into your budget. And it all starts, for most funders, I will say those board members, first thing that they look at is the budget. So we spend a lot of time, right, on the wonderful narrative, telling our great story. But please don't underestimate the power of your budget, because those board members spend a lot of time. A lot of them are, typically used to working in financial institutions, or they've, done a lot of financial, things through their businesses or whatnot. They tend to be numbers people, and they often go to those numbers first. Tell your story through the numbers. That's how you build that capacity.
I think that's critical, especially in terms of the need to show the measurement.